And time now for this week's guest, like Helen and I. He's from Northern Ireland.
Hooray!
Which means that neither of us could actually do the interview because this podcast would have needed subtitles. I don't know why I went Irish there. I went actually Irish. This podcast would have needed subtitles, so it would have... He's one of the fastest rising stars in this business we call show, thanks to roles in the BBC's serial killer thriller The Fall, which is coming back for a third helping soon, and 50 Shades of Grey, which is coming back for more next year. But you'll see him twice on the big screen in the next 2 weeks. First this week in the psychological thriller The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, and next week in World War II thriller Anthropoid. He is, of course, Jamie Dornan, and he popped into the pod booth this week to talk to Phil Dissemblin.
Big pleasure to welcome Mr. Jamie Dornan to the Empire Podcast this week. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm very good, thanks.
Pretty good, thank you very much. We have a feast of Jamie Dornan over the next couple of weeks. We've got the ninth life of Louis Drax on the 2nd. Yeah. And then we have this movie that we're here to talk about today, Anthropoid, on the 9th. Mm-hmm. What the hell are we going to do on the 16th?
You're probably, there's like a back catalogue of stuff you could sort of delve into. Maybe earlier works.
If we're suffering withdrawals.
Yeah, exactly. No, I wouldn't bother doing that, to be honest.
Is it a bit weird though to see, because I guess you're doing a bit of press for both films and you've got your poster everywhere. Do you feel sort of suddenly ubiquitous again? It's
funny, I've been sort of living in Gloucestershire for the last while. I've been away so much this year, been in Canada for a lot of it, but since we've been back in the UK, we've been sort of camped out in Gloucestershire. So I'm sort of unaware of it, blissfully so. I keep getting pictures sent to me by mates of mine sort of, pretending to get their dicks out by my face and tube posters, and doing the finger to like my name on a poster in the tube. So I know I'm nice. Aware that it's out there and stuff.
Right. It's nice to know that you're still loved.
Yeah, it's great. That's what friends are for, that kind of, just unwavering support.
Is that a new sort of poster-based treatment?
No, I have to say, if I was in their position, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. I don't think I'd get my dick out like that, but...
right.
None of them actually did. There's one where they're sort of unzipping right by my face.
Okay, great. Well, the 24-hour tube is going to open whole new possibilities for...
That's quite exciting. Yeah.
We're here to talk about Anthropoid today, which is a gripping and tough, it's a tough watch.
It is a hard watch.
Film about the couple of Czech resistance men who had parachuted into Prague in 1942 to assassinate Reinhard Heydrich, who's one of the sort of top Nazis. I know people are asking you, Anthropoid, it sounds like some sort of horror movie, some sort of beast that's crawled out of the primordial swamp, or a sci-fi. But do you know why they called it Anthropoid, the mission?
Anthropoid is a Greek term for something like not a man. It's something other than human.
Oh, okay.
And the operation was called Operation Anthropoid, because that's how they viewed Heydrich, because he was this subhuman evil being. But I have to go, when I was first sent it, just in the email, and it's like subject Anthropoid, I was like, oh really? I don't know if I don't feel like I'm in a sort of science fiction-y place right now, but then obviously started reading it and went, all right, okay.
Did you think it was going to be one of those kind of From Dusk Till Dawn switcheroos where you're parachuted into Nazi-occupied Prague and then halfway through the creatures?
I actually, by the way, you should pitch that to someone. That's a great idea for a movie.
Well, I think they did that with Dead Snow, with Nazi zombies.
Oh, shit, yeah, I know what you mean, but I haven't seen that film.
No.
The most good ideas have already been done.
Yes, true.
And this story has actually been told in a few different guises before, but I think Sean Ellis, the director, has been trying to make this movie for 12 or 15 years, and he's been living with it for that amount of time, and the story means a great deal to him, and it's amazing being around someone who has such a thirst for the story. Killian and I both admittedly didn't know anything about this operation before, but the Czech Republic and Czech people are just a massive part of their history that shaped their country, forever. So it's one of those stories that you become sort of ashamed that you didn't know about it, and you're sort of thinking, what the fuck was I doing when when I was in history class, 20 years ago. I mean, I definitely wasn't listening. That's why I'm an actor.
You play Jan Kubis, who Jack O'Connell is playing in that kind of weird way that Hollywood throws up two films on the same subject. Despite the fact that Sean Ellis has been trying to make this one for 16 years, there's now going to be another one, which is, I think, a very different treatment of the story.
To the best of my knowledge, I've read a bit of it because a mate of mine, I was doing a movie with a mate, another Irish actor called Sam Keeley, and he'd been sent that script, HHHH, rolls off the tongue well. And so I read a bit of it, but it's a very different take on it. They focus a lot more on Heydrich himself, and Jason Clarke plays Heydrich apparently, and it's focusing more on him and his wife, played by Rosamund Pike. But what can you do? This happens all the time.
It's funny. It really is weird how it happens. Although I think in this case that they are very, very different treatments. I mean, HHHH is not. It's a bit more of a meta kind of narrative of the story. Just kind of wondering about, it's rare that you're in a film like you are with Cillian in this one, where you spend so much time, the two co-stars spend so much time together. Mm-hmm. He's mentioned that there was some piss-taking going on. Who is the ringleader of the piss-taking? Or were you both equally?
I think we're both, the lovely thing about, the friendship I have with Cillian is that we approach, I think, life and work in a very similar fashion, and we're both very serious about the work when between building up to it and when we need to focus, we're very focused, and between action and cut, obviously we're very much in the game, but we both like to break away pretty quickly in between shots or whatever, and I think something about both being Irish and we maybe have a similar vein of things that we find funny and humour, and we definitely had fun, but also luckily Sean Ellis, the director, a very similar approach as well. So it felt like a very sort of tight little unit, the three of us. We were very rarely apart, and it felt like we were very much in it together from the start, and it was very brotherly in a way, but with that and with great admiration comes piss taking. From where I'm from in the world, that is our currency, hence the sort of photographs I'm getting sent by my mate. It's like there's not a lot of sincerity, I guess, in terms of like appreciation of people. You show your love through slagging each other off. So, but I'm very comfortable with that. I've always enjoyed that.
So is it like, I saw Peaky Blinders season 2, what a lot of crap that was, that kind of thing?
Yeah, of course, but if I say that, then he knows that I loved it. Which I did, by the way. It's a brilliant show, and Cillian's incredible, and I've always been a massive fan of obviously Cillian's way older than me, so I sort of, in a way, I grew up watching his movies and his work.
You shot in Prague. Mm-hmm. in a lot of the Berndorf Studios is incredible, historic, and recreated the church
built by the Nazis, by the way. Berndorf Studios built by the Nazis.
You actually shot one of the torture scenes in the old Gestapo.
Yeah.
Actually, the same room as. I mean, that must lend an extra sort of authenticity to what you're doing.
I think that's invaluable, that having access to that. And also, I think you were going to talk about the church. We were lucky enough to shoot in Prague and visit like the real church, where the sort of siege happened, and it is very lasting effect that it has on you going there, and the bullet holes are still in the walls, and you can see the chunks out of the wall where the grenades had gone off, and this is where these guys literally had their last breaths. And when you were playing these guys, I mean, God, it really is. It's very palpable sense of dread that you have in that place. And then Sean arranged with Morgan Kennedy, who's our production designer, to build in Barrendorf Studios to scale set of the church. And I mean, I've done a decent amount of work, but I imagine that when my career finishes, probably in a couple of years, I will never have been on a set as incredible as this. The attention to detail of this church was crazy. And actually, there's one day I went to the real church in the morning and then went to the set that afternoon to do a recce before we filmed, and it was such a head fuck because they were totally identical. It was creepy.
Some of the numbers on that church: 910 bags of concrete, 90 square metres of glass, 3,300 square metres of wooden boards just to rebuild that church.
That's all. That's
like all the concrete
right there.
Right.
Yeah. Cillian and I.
You had to bring your own clothes.
in pints.
You have The Fall, season 3, series 3. It's a great show. I've got to confess, when I finished, I'm aware that people listening may not have watched up to date at this point, season 2, but it didn't seem like your character had much more path to travel, should we say?
I agree with you.
He's an obdurate guy, I guess.
Yeah, I get. Look, I think there's. There's a million different ways. There's not a million, but there's a couple of different ways that he could remain an active part of the story. So, without saying too much, he's definitely present. I think people know I've done the 3rd series, so he definitely has a presence in the 3rd series.
And one of those ways is clearly zombie would be.
He's a zombie, yeah. Sorry to ruin it for everyone who comes back as a zombie, and he's parachuted back in actually, and there's Nazis involved.
In contrast with working with Cillian, you don't really spend a lot of screen time with Gillian Anderson in this so far. Very little. More in season 3, can you say?
We definitely more than the first series, and there's some stuff there. There's some stuff there. But in the second series, as much as we don't get a huge amount of time together, we did get the big scene that happens in episode 6 of the second series, which is, I think it potentially is the longest scene in BBC television history. I think it ran at 16 minutes or something of just two people sat at a table talking. I think it was 12, 13, maybe 14 pages of dialogue. Wow. And I imagine it'll be the biggest scene I ever have to learn. So as much as we don't get that much screen time, just even one scene like that, you can learn so much from someone, and it was my most enjoyable day of work I think I've ever had, was just sat with her at a table all day, just at each other.
Yeah,
trying to outdo each other. I loved it.
It's a great scene. It's your sort of De Niro Pacino heat moment, I guess, the two of you.
Yeah. Who's she?
I don't know what I just threw that analogy out. It's early for an analogy of that complexity. She's, I don't know. Oh. I'm not sure. Good question. I guess she would be Al Pacino, wouldn't she? If she's
going to say that.
Yes. 50 Shades Darker is coming soon. I want to ask you about the 50 Shades project, because the first one came with a lot of the sort of the eyes of the world on it, and you must have felt that. I know you did. The second one sounds like it was more fun because you've been sort of unencumbered from a bit of that laser-eyed attention, I suppose. Is that the case? Did you enjoy the shoot more?
No, I agree with everything you're saying about that. You're spot on. I think the first film of any franchise, there's a sort of unique pressure that's applied to it. When it's a franchise that means so much to so many people, and has so many people have their own opinion of how it should be and how it should look and how people should look and sound, and that brings with it this palpable, tangible tension, and it can be quite an uncomfortable tension. So I think the first one was kind of riddled with that, but in every department, in terms of this is a highly pressured beast that we have in our hands here, and you're just sort of trying to get it right. And then with the second two, which we shot 2 and 3 back to back, the first one, although not every critic loved it, it's fair to say it made an astonishing amount of money and continues to through HOD and all that sort of stuff. So the pressure's off a little bit in terms of trying to set the tone and think you can kind of do what you want with it a bit more, I think, and I think I speak for every department when I say that.
There was a lot of talk of there being a fractious shoot in terms of, especially between Sam Taylor-Wood and E.L. James. Was it more fractious than other shoots that you've worked on?
No, I think there's pressures involved with everyone making a movie of this sort of scale, and not just Sam and Erica, and everyone is feeling the pressure, and everyone is trying to complete their role as best they can, and for Erica, these are her babies, these mean more to her than anyone else. So you've got the first movie, and you've got a director trying to do her thing, and you've got a writer wanting this, but I don't think anything occurred that I haven't seen before in any other film. I think there's pressure making these movies. Yeah, well, film shoots are pressured places, aren't they, by definition? They really are. And often those ones that are just fun, the movie doesn't sort of turn out, perhaps. Yeah, it depends really, but sometimes you need a bit of angst and pressure to make things happen. Your first ever film role was in Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, which is a pretty cool place to start. Very cool place to start. I sort of often can't believe that it started there, because I would have happily done a couple of episodes of Doctors or something, but it was a nice. If he had just won an Academy Award, and it was a lot of hype. I sort of can't believe it happened that way, in a way. I mean, and then I sort of basically didn't work for about 8 years, but it was a great place to start, yeah.
People were just absorbing the magnitude of your performance, which I understand was slightly inspired by Adam Ant.
4 minutes. Adam Ant was definitely Sophia's inspiration in terms of the look. It's such a fun thing. Oddly enough, shooting 50 Shades back to back there in Paris at the end, the very final week of filming, I stayed in the same hotel the same hotel room that I stayed in when I shot Marie Antoinette.
Just coincidentally,
11 years ago, and we shot in the opera house next door to the hotel, which is where we shot the big masquerade ball scene of Marie Antoinette on my first day of professional filming ever. We were in there again. It was all very, very strange. And actually, our DP on 50, John Schwartzman, is Sophia's cousin, and is Jason Schwartzman's brother, who was in Marie Antoinette with me. So it was very, very strange suddenly being back there, and it was like going back 11 and a half years.
If that were me, I just want to go around and tell everyone that.
I probably did do that.
Did you? Did you?
That's like, here, go and go to craft service. Something. Dornan's coming up. He's got bang on about how he was here 11 and a half years ago filming his first ever gig.
But it was the exact same hotel room.
Honestly, it was the same hotel room. That's strange.
Yeah, that is pretty eerie.
Very, very strange.
Was it fun being back in Paris, just generally to shoot?
I love
50?
I love Paris, but with 50 and the fandom of it, doesn't really allow for a normal Paris standardy hotel and get a pint sort of situations.
What about Prague?
Prague, it's so easy to, it's famous for its beer, so it's so easy to get a good pint in everywhere. And saying that, I did end up, which no Irish person should ever do, end up in an Irish pub anywhere, but it happens all the time. And I actually, on my first night out in Prague, ended up in this Irish pub having an awful pint of Guinness. Again, you should never order Guinness outside of Ireland, but I've suddenly found myself in this Irish pub watching, sort of Gaelic football. But Prague, brilliant.
50 Shades has become sort of people's fixture Valentine's Day movie. I wonder what your romantic Valentine's Day go-to film would be.
I have 2 very young children now, so Valentine's Day, if we can just
it's Frozen,
get the kids to bed and get the songs from Frozen out of our heads and cook some dinner and open a bottle of wine, then we've done well.
I have to let you go in the not too distant future, but I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. First of all, after Marie Antoinette, you moved on to a sort of small British film, and a good one too, Shadows in the Sun, in which you worked with the mighty Gene Simmons from Spartacus and Guys and Dolls.
She was, God rest her soul, one of my favourite people I've ever met and ever worked with, definitely. She had the best stories and the most shining glint in her eye that I've ever seen, and that was her last ever job. Jean died about a year and a half after we filmed it, and she just, will I ever probably not get to work with someone again who you can just go, so Jean, do you mind me, what was Branto actually like, or can we talk about Frank Sinatra for a while? I mean, Insane, or Howard Hughes, and all these people that she knew and worked with and maybe loved, and it's incredible, and it's just so willing to talk about it all. I love Jean very much, and unfortunately, her name is also synonymous. People say Gene Simmons, they think you're talking about the guy from Kiss, and then which I find it's such a sort of I'm always trying to learn people about what Jean brought to the world and how her body of work was incredible. And like even her first ever job, she was like the body double for Vivian Leigh in some film where they rolled her up. Vivian Leigh's character had to be rolled up in a rug and thrown into the sea. And back then, Jean was 16 at the time and just gone over from Cricklewood in North London where she grew up, and they literally rolled her up in a rug and threw her into the sea. Like that was her first day of like professional in Hollywood. Like, so Jean, we're just going to roll you up, and it's going to be like Vivian's character just rolled up into the rug and like thrown in the sea. And they had a couple of dudes in wetsuits sort of like clambering around in the water trying to like get her up after. She said it was insane. But then the next year after that, signed this like big picture deal with MGM or whoever it was, and did Spartacus the next year when she was like 17 or something like that, and got nominated for an Oscar. And then that was it. She was off, but a remarkable woman. I loved her very much.
You have, obviously, we mentioned earlier, Louis Drax, which is an adaptation of a novel. It's sort of a mystery, psychological mystery thriller.
Yeah, I think it's quite a hard novel and quite a hard movie to sort of just categorise very fast. It's a real melting pot of different genres, I think, which makes it kind of interesting.
And you play a neurologist.
I play a neurologist, yeah.
So do you know more...
maverick, sort of slightly offbeat neurologist, not your everyday brain doctor, I guess. He's kind of a out there approach to modern medicine.
And one more poster for your friends to deface was a Netflix show, Siege of Jadotville, which is a true story, isn't it?
Yes, that's an incredibly true story. Again, with this, that's an Irish story, and I didn't even know it, which is, you know, sacrilege probably. But it was unknown, and actually hoping that this movie sheds a lot of light. And already the boys of A Company, who were out there in the Congo and were involved in this sort of insane siege, are getting recognition. Those who are still left are finally getting some recognition for their efforts, because it was heroism on a level that's sort of unparalleled in terms of in Irish history, certainly. So there's a lot of me the next couple of months, I have to say. Yeah.
You'll be getting some text messages, I imagine.
Yeah.
Jamie Dornan, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for chatting to us on the
Thanks for having
podcast.
us. Thank you.